So this is calculus, and we're looking at section 3.1, extrema on an interval. So we can look at some function. And when we look at this function, this continues to go up forever and down forever over here. So it doesn't have an absolute minimum or maximum, but it does have relative minimums and maximums. So extrema is just high points and low points. So if we said, what's the maximum of this graph? There is none, because it goes to infinity. What's the minimum on this graph? There isn't one, because it goes to negative infinity. But if we said, we just want to look at this graph on an interval. So we're going to pick an interval from A to B. So this is an endpoint, and this is an endpoint. This number, or this point, and this point are considered relative extrema, and in this case a relative minimum, and a relative maximum. Relative meaning that it's a low point or a high point. Relative because it's not the absolute maximum or the absolute minimum, because as we said before, it goes up to positive infinity and down to negative infinity. So that then we could say, well, what's the maximum across the interval? So this endpoint, right, has this y value. This endpoint has this y value, whatever it happens to be. This one has this y value, and this one has this y value. So on the interval from A to B, this point would be your maximum, and this point would be your minimum. Other things that we can talk about on the graph are they increasing or decreasing? So obviously our graph is decreasing here till it hits here, then it increases, and then it decreases. So we're going to look at an example, and we're going to use the derivative in order to find these points and if a function is increasing or decreasing. So an example, let's start with a simple one. We are going to look at the function (3x to the 4th minus 4x cubed) on the interval -1 to 2. So first step, take the derivative. Using your basic power rule, after you have the derivative, your second step is to set the derivative equal to 0. And then solve. So 0 equals 12x cubed minus 12x squared. We can factor out a 12x squared and get and x and minus 1. So if I continue, then x would be 0 and x would be 1. These points are considered our critical numbers. So critical numbers occur whenever the derivative is 0 or when it's undefined. We're going to just look at when it's 0 first, and then we'll talk about when it's undefined. Maximum and minimums occur at critical numbers. Or critical points, you would just include the y value.